Hello and welcome to Forever Sports, and a very interesting video coming up, hopefully, in that we have just seen Cash and Sport, who is on Twitter. You can go and follow him and does some very cool threads. Has just released a list of basically amounts that Sorry pay with regards to Springbok match day fees, for example, how much you get paid to be in a Springbok squad, the minimum URC salary, your 7 salaries, for example, what semi-pro players earn, as well as Curry Cup match fees, as well as kind of who takes on responsibility of paying those in terms of the sorry contributions, which is quite cool to see because it's interesting in terms of understanding what the financial dynamics are within South Africa. Because, we talk about the fact that, these players need to get paid more whilst going overseas, but what are they getting paid? And what does it mean when you pay for the Springboks, for example, from a financial point of view, which is a lot, by the way. You look at the Springbok match fees, and that is where the money is. If you are a regular playing Springbok based in South Africa, you're doing absolutely fine. But you can also see from regards to looking at the URC salary, why more senior players, for example, that aren't in the box here, do look to move away. Not that you're earning terribly as a URC player in terms of your average South African, but in a rugby point of view, you could be earning a lot more overseas. Before we look at the exact amounts and sort of break it down, please do smash the like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. So this is the table that Cash and Sport has shared, and we're going to go through it, shall we? So the big thing, obviously, is that first amount, which is pretty mouth-dropping, and that is if you are a member of the Springbok match day squad. If you're in the 23, your match fees for that day is 197.93 per match. So, for example, if you were to play 10 and more matches in the year, you would earn over R1,000,000 just in your match fees. Now, that is over and above your URC domestic salary that your club pays, for example, as well as fees you get for being in a Springbok squad. That is just your match day fee for the day. And it looks like that's pretty much standardized. It doesn't matter what kind of player you are. If you're 21 years old, making your debut, if you played 120 tests, that is the match fee, which I think is actually fair. At the end of the day, everyone runs onto the field on that same time, and on that day, they're kind of all equal. However, where do then suddenly, for example, Evan Etzebeth, where does he earn more compared to, I don't know, Quine Hall or Morne van den Berg, players who are sort of just coming into the Springbok setup? And we're talking about that in a bit in terms of the pony player minimum salary, and pony stands for players of national interest. So if you're in this, so this is it's a little bit confusing over here. It says Springbok non-playing squad, and it's got a weekly amount. I assume, and again, this is my assumption, I'll have to try and confirm this. I have been trying to confirm this. But it looks like you get basically 60,000 Rand a week, or equivalent of 8,505.57 Rand a day to be in the squad. So when you get called up and the squad arrives on, say, the Sunday, every day you are in the Springbok squad, not the alignment camps, by the way, in the Springbok squad, you will be earning 8,500 Rand a day. So if you don't get picked in the match day squad, then you'll get your 8,505 Rand for that day, for example. Because you don't get match fees because you're not playing in the match. So any sort of Springbok player, as soon as they're in camp, are going to get about 60 grand a week. So if you're in camp, for example, for the entire November autumn nation, for example, that's 4 weeks. You can then bank about 240,000 Rand before you even get match fees. So and that's for example, just the recognition of being on tour, for example, being part of the Springbok squad and the likes of that. So there's a lot of financial recognition just getting into the squad as well. Then we've got so if you part of the Springbok squad and you get released to the province. So for example, last year I'm trying to think, Trevor Nyakani was done. He was released back to the Sharks, and they played a Curry Cup game against Griquas in Kimberley. They actually lost the game. But for example, because Rassie Erasmus likes to have larger squads, he often sends players back to their province for game time. Now, despite not being part of the squad, inverted commas, you still get paid your 8,500 Rand per day when you go back to your union because you're still part of the squad. So if you're part of the squad for 10 days, you're part of the squad for 12 days, even if you go back to your provincial union, from when the squad meets to when the squad leaves, or for example, when you depart, as long as you're part of that squad, you get paid that amount. Now, what is obviously unclear is injuries. And I want to assume if you get injured, basically, when you leave the squad and you're no longer eligible to play, you no longer get paid. That's sort of 8,500 Rand a day. So that's why it's quite interesting when you see players who will recover in camp rather than out of camp, because there is definitely a financial aspect to it. So if a player, for example, can be available in maybe a week or two, then they might sit there saying, right, well, he can continue his rehab in the camp because you can still be part of the conversations, the team meetings, and the likes of that. But if a player's going to be out for several weeks, then it makes more sense to release them. They don't have to pay them. They can go back to their sort of their domestic club who can basically pick up the bill. And it does sound maybe a little bit sort of tedious in terms of, well, that kind of money, is it really that big? But it does add up, because the problem is as soon as a player is removed, is injured, you have to bring another player up. And there'll be budgets in terms of, right, we're going to have, I don't know, 16 to 20 weeks worth of box squad weeks. Therefore, we've got to pay 30 to 40 players, for those weeks. And especially when Rusty Rasmus has such big squads, it is costing us a small fortune, I'm sure. But then you've got, for example, your pony player minimum salary. Now, this is not a minimum salary in terms of any player national interest are earning at least that. This is a contribution from Sorry. And it says it's partially funded by the pool fund. So basically, there's a pool fund within SA Rugby that a whole bunch of people, different sort of aspects of it, contribute. And this is a contribution to their salaries. So if you look further down over there, it says the domestic franchise player minimum salary for URC in Europe is 39,575 Rand per month. We'll talk about that in a bit. Your pony player minimum salary is a contribution on top of that. And that's also not just to franchise players, by the way. That is a contribution made to international players as well. And that will be a minimum of 12,000, but there's no sort of maximum. So, for example, that's where Evan Etzebeth is being paid substantially more in terms of the contribution SA Rugby are making to a salary compared to a younger player. So that is where your bigger players earn bigger contracts, or bigger amounts. Gone are sort of the days where you had your Springbok contracted players. Instead, we've got players of national interest, a group of, 52, 60 players. And I think it's actually even more than that, to be honest. And SA Rugby contribute towards their salary. Whatever the URC teams pay, for example, that's kind of on them. SA Rugby say, well, we'll contribute towards them. But the nice thing is that it does help the URC team. So, for example, as a URC team, you have to pay your player a minimum of 40,000 Rand per month. Now, if you've then got players who are part of the national interest, for example, you can then sit there saying, great, so we don't actually have to worry about paying. Let's say a player wants to earn 100,000 Rand a month, okay? If you've got SA Rugby contributing 25, then you can sit there saying, right, well, we can pick up 75. If a player wants to earn 85,000 Rand a month and they're not a player of national interest, then you have to sit there saying, well, can we afford the 85,000? And that's kind of how the SA Rugby and the teams kind of have to work together in terms of identifying the players' national interest and how this works when it comes to contract negotiations. Now, 40 grand a month, for example, for a young player is great, However, and if you, for example, a player of national, you're earning what, about $500,000 Rand a year, more or less. Obviously gross, but that's the thing. So you're earning $500,000 Rand a year as a URC player. For example, Snell Humber obviously won't be on a minimum of 40,000 Rand a month. But he's going to go over to Japan. He's going to earn 7 million Rand, and if he's earning 2 million Rand, for example, that's probably 4 times the minimum or what he would have earned here. Now, he would have been at least double that, probably over 100,000 Rand a month. But he's going to, for example, if he's going to go to Japan, he could probably earn 2 million Rand, 3 million Rand. And that's why somebody like Sinan Humber is going to go overseas. Sam's going to the top 14 because, they'll be earning, £20,000 a month, for example. And so that's where you can understand where sometimes players will decide, oh, it's actually better for me to go overseas. Now, if you are, remember, the Springbok squad, you don't have to necessarily make that financial sacrifice, because if you're Evan Etzebeth and you're playing 10 games a year and you're getting £1 million for match fees, you're probably getting 100,000 Rand per month as a pony contribution, and you're probably getting your 60 grand a month when you're in box squad. You're earning a lot of money even before the Sharks and your endorsements and the likes of that. But this is, for me, what an interesting thing is. So if you're a semi-pro player, your Varsity Cup players, sort of some of your Puma players will be pro, but your first division sides for semi-pro players, the minimum salary for that is 7,000 Rand, and it's not specified what the salary contribution is towards that. There is no set minimum player for developer player minimum salary. So, for example, some of the URC teams will have development players, and some of the youngsters will be semi-pro players, for example, and those are sort of what the amounts over there are. Now, this is what's quite interesting as well. Your sevens players. So, your sevens annual retainer is at least 353,000 Rand per year, which, by the way, is less than your minimum player salary at the URC. So, this is the thing. If you are a sevens player and you're on the absolute base retainer, you will earn less per month on your base than what you would as a URC player. As a 20-year-old, 19-year-old URC player, if you've got a URC contract, you will earn less. However, there is performance-based bonuses. And that is over here. It says a sevens tournament win bonus is anything between 6 and 38,000 rand per player. Now the problem is there's only about 6 tournaments, and we're probably only winning maybe 2. So if you, for example, are a young player, first time on the sevens, and you win 2 tournaments, you're going to get an additional 12,000 rand. Again, you will still earn more if you're a domestic franchise player. And that is why we're seeing a lot of players, JC Torres, for example, make a move from sevens to the Lions, even though he might not necessarily make the box. Well, I think he will, but there's a lot of players who have made the transition. Who some people sit there saying, "Well, I don't think they will make box." Werner Koch, for example, made the transition, but it's a financial thing because they will earn more money playing 15s. And the final things over here, which is a little bit worrying, is your Currie Cup First Division match fee and your Premier Division match fee. I mean, you play a Currie Cup game for the Greek Leagues and you're going to get paid less than $4,000 for the day. It's not a lot of money. For a Premier Division match fee, 2,200. I mean, those guys are semi-pro players. So they're earning 8,000 rand a month, and then they're going to get an extra 2 per match. So in a 10 games, you play 10 games, an extra 20 grand for the year. It's next to nothing, isn't it? And this is why so many of these sort of semi-pro players, they're semi-pro in inverted commas, they have to have jobs and the likes of that, because it's just there's not enough money in the Currie Cup. I mean, you think that you pay for Springboks, get paid virtually 120,000 rand. It's 100, it's like almost 100 times, not quite, but 50 times what you earn if you're playing a Currie Cup First Division side, more than 50 times. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But so those are some of the. Obviously, we don't know exactly what the specifics are. We don't know what the pony contributions towards Evanet's best salary, for example. We don't know what your bigger URC players are on. They've got salary budgets of upwards of 60, 70, 80 million. So for 40, 45 players. So just because that's the minimum doesn't mean that's what a lot of the players are earning. But the main thing is, if you're a youngster, for example, if you can get yourself a franchise contract, your minimum contract will be 40,000 rand a year. And if you want to get the big bucks, you can go play for the Boks. So that, I suppose, gives some people a bit more context to why, especially even youngsters. If you're being scouted by Racing, a youngster player that made his debut, went to Kingswood, was scouted straight out of the Kingswood to Racing, and he can tell you right now, he's earning a lot more than 40,000 rand a month. So that's why some of these players also, they sit there going, well, financially, I'm going to go and earn a lot more money a lot quicker than if I stayed in South Africa. However, obviously, that makes your transfer paying Springboks a lot harder. All very interesting, I think. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.